A large alien slinked from the back seat of a car with a shadow thrown on his face as he began to walk towards a large building in front of him. As he walked along the rough gravel path, a young Elrin emerged from the building walking towards him. "Trademaster Kotak, it's a pleasure to see you again, after so long." "I'm here for work, Tosh, not pleasure, but yes, it has been a while. I'm quite surprised you invited me here after our last talk. The Sazanas seem to have little need for Terra, and you have a lot for us." "Well, you know, the Winged Empire does not like to trade with others without being able to receive or give something. And while it has been a long and tedious process, I think we have found something you would like." "Yes, you said so in your report, Tosh, but I am quite surprised to find a shed, instead of your normal office, is where you wanted to meet. And what's with these lengths of steel everywhere?" Tosh laughed slightly. "Well then, why don't you come inside and I'll explain. I asked you to come here though, because I thought it would be best to show, instead of just tell." Kotak nodded, following Tosh back into the building as he entered. He almost immediately stopped just within the doorway. The building was crude and industrial, and the thing in front of him was no different. "Tosh, what the hell have you dragged me into? And what is this?" A chuckle slipped from the lips of Tosh, smiling slightly. "Well, with the revolution being so recent, the new Empress has mandated a focus on Imperial strength. What we have in front of us is the first production unit of our new hydrogen-fueled steam engine." "Wait, hydrogen? Are you mad? Hydrogen is extremely explosive. If you think I'm crazy enough to go along with this, I might as well just leave if you can't give a good answer." Tosh sighed as she walked along the side of the machine. "Let me show you something, Kotak." She quietly climbed up into the cab up the almost 15-foot ladder and vanished out of sight for a moment before coming back. "Catch this, will you?" She tossed a black rectangular object down before climbing down the ladder. He caught the black object in his hands, dust coating his green fingers. "What on Terra is this, Tosh?" She hopped down, brushing off her fingers on the side of the machine. "It's condensed hydrogen. This is almost 200 times more effective than coal and oil, as well as being non-explosive in the case of an accident." Looking up, he looked over the machine as it sat within the shed, hissing and spitting water down into space it sat over. Almost 300 meters long at the boiler, it sat atop 38 50-inch wheels set up in sets of 6-8 10-8-6 with the rear set facing backward. He sighed slightly. "Okay, you have caught my curiosity, Tosh, what is it you wish to show me?" A smile spread across her face as she moved to walk up a set of stairs just behind them. "Come up here, I'll show you." Climbing up the stairs, the pair entered a glass box at the edge that hung over the machine slightly. Banks of machines lined the wall, while screens hung from the ceiling. "So, how are things looking, Mark? Is everything ready to go?" Tosh raised her voice, calling out to one of the men standing in front of the panels. He didn't look up as he spoke. "Everything seems good, ma'am. Boiler pressure is sitting happily at 10K, and everything is running smoothly." "Good, let's start it up then. Tell the crew down there we can start our tests when they are ready." The engineer nodded, turned back to the console, and pressed a large blue button. A klaxon sounded through the building, and several people emerged from under the engine, walking up to the glass box they were standing in. "So, what exactly are you doing here, Tosh? This seems quite a lot just to show me one of your creations." "Ah. Well, yes, your home system has rough weather conditions, right? You have tried everything to create a consistent global trade system: sea, air, car, horse and buggy. You even have trouble with spaceships. But oddly enough, no species we have come across have tried what we call trains." And if we were to adopt these trains, what is the benefit to us? Spaceships have been the most successful creation so far, as they can mostly avoid our weather. "Well, simple, Kotak. These are easy to maintain, much easier than starships, as well as the infrastructure they use, being relatively cheap to produce and maintain, just requiring wood, stone, and steel. The engineer turned to face the pair. "Everything's ready, ma'am." Tosh nodded. "Okay. Start the pull test." "We asked you to come here, Kotak, so we could display the physical strength of this locomotive and its load capacity. While we are doing this in Terran tons, it should be easy to translate." With a second sound of the klaxon, the engine responded as the driver pulled on a long string cord, the whistle emitting a ghostly yell, sending shivers down Kotak's spines. "Starting with 100-ton load," the engineer announced, as the engine slowly moved forward silently, seemingly putting in no effort as it moved the 40 feet, till it almost touched the doors at the end of the hall. "Go up in increments of 1,000, Mark. We want to make it a show." He turned around surprised. "Are you sure, miss? This locomotive is the first of its class." "Of course, I'm sure, Mark, it might be the first, but it's also supposed to be the strongest thing humanity has ever built. If we don't count starships." He sighed and turned back to the console and turned a dial slowly, each notch clicking audibly. Going up to 1,000 tons of tension. Little happened, except the engine starting to sing, as the central set of 4 pistons started to feel some force. Tosh slowly turned to look at Kotak, only to find him extremely unimpressed. Turning back to the engineer, she sighed. "What's the load limit on this engine supposed to be, Mark?" About 30,000 tons, miss. Or about 300 of our heavy tanks. Do you want me to knock it up to that already?" "No, we don't want to put her under too much strain, just go 100 tons below." Mark sighed as he twisted the dial up. 29,000 tons of tensile strength. "Huff, do you expect me to believe any machine could pull 29,000 tons? Tosh, you have got to be Joe." His words were cut short as Mark pressed a small switch, locking in his input, and the engine exploded into full life, all 10 pistons putting in almost full work. All 3 funnels at the front of the engine spewing out black smoke that quickly went out of vent as white steam erupted from brass tubes, expelling excess water. And vents along the edge of the firebox were forced open, glowing, as the fire demanded more fuel. The engine hammered in a heavy song, a symphony of steam and metal, as the pistons hit the base of their stride on the colossal wheels. From his perch above the engine, he could see the firemen now working hard to keep the fire hot and bright enough to blind someone. A smile crept across his face as the beat of the pistons reminded him of music his people had made, the banging of drums of a war march. Tosh turned slightly to catch the smile on his face. "Take it to the limit, Mark." Mark nodded, turning the dial a little more. The engine continued to beat, panting heavily with each piston stride. Huge puffs of black smoke erupting out of the funnels as each set of pistons fed on individually, having only come into stride as the work demanded it. Barely, over the heavy beating of the engine, Kotak could hear the dial twist up one more notch. And slowly the engine slid backward, the weight being more than it could pull, slipping, till it was back to where it had started. And with the pulling of levers, the engine came to a stop, hissing, as the vents closed and hot water slipped from the brass pipes into the pit below. Tosh turned to him smiling, as the engineers quickly left the room to continue their work. "So, Kotak, what do you think of it?" Clearing his throat, Kotak nodded slightly. "Very impressive. Better than most things other empires have shown us. But I'll have to speak to my bosses about the possible purchase of such machines. How many do you plan to create?" For a moment Tosh thought about it. Across all 18 worlds, likely something along the lines of 1,800, as well as an additional 10,000 for war use. 1,800. By the gods, the people of this empire have insane desires, I swear. But I suppose I'll speak to my bosses about this. The council would be interested in a machine that can move so much cargo at once. Although if we were to agree to this, we would require training. Oh, don't worry. That can be sorted out. We aren't about to offer new technology to someone who doesn't know how to use it and expect them to just learn. Slowly, Kotak nodded. Well, I must be on my way if we are done. I'm sure the council will be very interested to create such a possibly strong connection with your empire, I believe. And hopefully, more you create will be excellent imports for us. Tosh slowly nodded. Well then, I'll let you leave. Should I escort you to your car, sir? Kotak waved his hand over his head as he slowly walked away. No, I'm good, miss. Thank you for the invitation though. This has been quite the learning experience. Author's name and the link to original text is in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.